Welcome to a day one quick guide for the new Royal Titan bosses. Now this is going to be a simple guide that goes over all of the base mechanics where you don't have to constantly keep switching your gear while also using a relatively cheap setup. You are going to want your best crush based or just your best melee weapon in general. I am going to be using a cudgel, which is very cheap, along with just basic void as my armor. I am using a ZCB. You can easily replace this with an ACB or an RCB. I don't have an ACB and I didn't feel like using a RCB for this guide kill. Otherwise, the rest of this gear is very easy to acquire and the level bracket you're going to need to even take on these Titans to begin with. Alongside that, I do have a rune pouch that has both the elemental of water and fire spells. Depending on how you're doing these kills, these can be incredibly useful or even necessary. In terms of getting here, the boss lair is located in the Asgarnia Ice Dungeon. As soon as you go down the ladder, you can take the northern route and then head west to get to where I'm at, or you can head through this agility shortcut, which pops you out a tunnel right here. And now for the last thing before we jump into the full kill, this is a duo boss, and it is 100% recommended and more efficient to do in a duo depending on your gear. If you don't have full max gear with like Torva and a Scythe or a Bofa, when it comes to comparing kill times, it is 100% more efficient just to do it in a duo. But this guide is more oriented if you don't have somebody else to do it with. Now there are a couple strategies on how you can kick off this boss fight. You're going to want to do it by ranging because they wander away from the center area. Stay off of these things. This is where your spells come in handy. Using water on the fire lines dissipates them along with fire spells on the ice areas. Kind of self-explanatory. These little things can get blocked if you don't leave up. Now they came in within melee range. This is your time where you can switch to your melee gear. Make sure you have Protect for melee on. This little stomping ground attack is completely negated if you have Protect for melee equipped. This guy will probably be a little scuffed based on just having to do some commentary. Once they wander away, use your ranging. These things act similarly to the little purple guys from Shamans, where right before a few seconds after they're out, they will do a little explosion animation that you can avoid. Or you can switch your gear and use the opposite spell against them to kill them. In this guide, I'm just constantly going to be taking a little bit of chip damage like that. You can run away and shoot to avoid that chip damage. Otherwise, I'm just going to be face tanking it and eating all throughout. I also do have the Blood Fury, which with your lower level setups is going to be very beneficial for not having to constantly keep eating. And there are a couple strategies. You can constantly keep fighting back and forth between both of the giants, keeping them at even health. But one strategy I've been employing is just getting the Fire Giant all the way down to 200 HP, which will trigger the second phase of the fight, pulling both giants into the middle, which we're going to see right here. Both will teleport. And throughout the entirety of the fight, they are most weak to melee. Once you get to this stage, it is much easier to just constantly keep them in melee distance. Whenever these things spawn on the ground, you want to stand on it. It'll do 3 little AoE effects that hit incredibly hard. And now that we already have the Fire Giant pretty far down, we want to camp over here on the ice. Make sure you constantly keep running back to the center. As you can see, this side is ice and the left is fire. You can use this to your advantage, luring these ice elementals over here onto the fire side whenever you get to that mechanic will kill all of the ones that are standing on the opposite style. So right here, everybody's going to be on my left. It'll kill all of the ice ones, leaving only the fire on this side. But now that you understand most of the mechanics, let's go ahead and do some DPS so we're not stuck in this fight for the next 6 minutes. Melee whenever you can. As soon as you get over here, switch to your range gear. Flick your rigor. Do a couple attacks. And then right back to your melee. You can constantly jiggle these elementals a little bit if you want to avoid some of the extra chip damage like that. And this part of the fight is just kind of rinse and repeat. Obviously, the better weapon and gear you have, this will go much quicker than it is currently going for me. But it does get the point across that you can do it in a variety of setups without doing a ton of gear switching. Now, right at the end, we want to get this one as low as possible without killing it. Otherwise, it triggers an rage phase that adds a ton of chip damage to the last end of this fight. Kill the other one. And there you have it. There is a full kill of the Royal Titans. In a solo, you can loot either of the giants. You can loot the ice depending on which of the uniques you are trying to get after, but you don't have the option to loot both of them at the same time. You can only loot one or the other. And as you can see, that kill was definitely on the slower side, coming around in 4.5 minutes compared to the average I've been getting just around 3. This is also with some entirely not very good gear, so the better your gear is, the better your kill times are going to be. And if you have somebody to do it with, or if you just pair up with somebody random, you can easily get those kill times to around 1.5 to 2 minutes. One thing I also got sidetracked and forgot to do at the very start of the kill, you do want to dump your specs, either through an ACB or a ZCB with ruby bolts, or just dragon claws or some kind of melee special attack. Get that DPS out as soon as you can so you do have some time for your special attack to recharge. And for the loot, in the 12 kills I did, I pulled 3 of the amulets which teleport you right outside of the dungeon. And I also pulled the untradeable Mystic Vigor upgrade. The general loot, if we throw all of it in, comes out to a grand total of 430k. And if you divide that by like the 8 or so kills that I actually pulled a different drop, it comes out to around 50k per kill. And in general, that does seem pretty standard to get anywhere between 50 to 100k depending on what items you roll on the drop table. But that's everything I wanted to include in today's video. If you guys did enjoy or found it helpful, this is a bare bones basic guide to help get you some of your early kills regardless of the setup you have available. And it was 100% more geared towards not having to constantly keep switching your gear. Drop a like if you enjoyed, otherwise I will catch you guys in the next video.